Hello and welcome to This Is Us. I'm Becca King-Reed. This week we're exploring the rich history of San Jose. Right now we're in the heart of the city on the site of the first state capitol. San Jose was founded in 1777 and is the oldest civil settlement in the Golden State. Today we're going to find out what makes San Jose one of the most fascinating cities in California. We've got some great stories to share and it all starts now.
This is us.
This is us.
This is us.
Welcome back. We're in San Jose's oldest park. Joining me now is history buff Jim Zetterquist. And Jim, you were telling me that this was the plaza in the early 1800s, kind of the center of the city. Paint us a picture. What would it look like if you came to visit?
Well, you would have found a flea-infested, dusty little pueblo. And the pueblo basically consisted of two rows of a couple dozen adobes with the plaza in the middle.
And then there was a church a little distance away, St. Joseph's?
There sure was. In 1903, they built St. Joseph's Church. And if you would have attended church there on a Sunday after Mass, you would have come out to the plaza most likely and attended a bear and a bullfight, which was a custom of that time until they outlawed it.
That was after statehood?
It sure was.
Now, this plaza saw a lot of change over the years. San Jose, a pretty progressive city. Tell us what it was like at the end of the 1800s.
Well, in 1881, San Jose became the first city west of the Mississippi that was illuminated by electricity. During that time, just off the plaza was the old Chinatown.
Now, Chinatown kind of disappeared under sort of mysterious circumstances. Can you tell us a little about that?
It sure did. It was thought that it was arson, and in 1887, the Chinatown burnt down, suspiciously just 2 weeks before the city council voted to erect the new city hall right in the middle of the plaza.
Ah, and I understand that there was they couldn't put the fire out because no water available?
That's right. It was very suspicious.
Ah, now moving around the plaza and further in time, tell us about the post office.
Well, the post office was built in 1892, and it was built of the same stone that they used to build Stanford University. It came from the same quarry.
Ah, now what happened in the 1900s? What sort of change occurred then?
Well, the change in the 1900s you saw along the plaza was in the 1920s they built the Sainte Claire Hotel. And after that, we were hit with the Depression. And as a WPA project, they built the Civic Auditorium.
Welcome back. We're in St. James Park, and this is San Jose's second oldest park, and it was built with a particular purpose in mind. It was at a time when San Jose had lost their standing as a state capital and was looking to get it back. Here to explain how that could happen is Jim Zetterquist. How would building a park make a difference?
Well, they wanted to make the best second impression they could. So they wanted to create a fine square with a wonderful courthouse, and they did just that. They hired Frederick Law Olmsted, one of the greatest landscape architect of the era, who had designed Central Park in New York. And they also created the courthouse. It still exists, and at that time was known to be one of the finest courthouses in the country.
It is very beautiful. And it's the host to many interesting criminals. Let's talk about the most infamous and probably one of the earliest ones. He really made a name for himself, and for some of the people, he was really a beloved figure.
He was. That was Tiburcio Vázquez. And in the 1860s and 1870s, Tiburcio Vázquez was a folklorish character here in California. And he was loved by many in the Hispanic community, but feared and hated by many Americans. And he was a Robin Hood character of that period. He went about robbing Americans and keeping the loot for himself, some of it for himself, and giving some to his friends. In 1874, he was finally apprehended, and he was tried for murder. A couple individuals were killed in one of the robberies that he was involved in, and they tried him for murder, and he was convicted in 1875. And after he was convicted, he was hung on the gallows that were placed behind the courthouse right here off the square.
Welcome back to St. James Park. Jim and I are standing in front of a statue of President McKinley. Jim, why is there a statue of President McKinley in San Jose?
In 1901, President McKinley spoke at this very site to thousands of residents of San Jose. Unfortunately, after that occurred, he was assassinated, and he was much loved by the community. So citizens in San Jose raised the funds to erect this statue in his honor.
And it's right where he gave his speech.
Right where he gave his speech.
Now, below President McKinley is a cannon. Tell us about that cannon.
Well, that cannon now is filled with concrete, but back in 1932, during the Depression, a few teenagers, mischievous teenagers, decided that they were going to put some blasting powder inside that cannon to see what was happening. So while other kids on Halloween were out tipping over outhouses and soaping windows, they fired off the cannon, and to their amazement, it blew out all the windows in the courthouse.
Did they end up in the courthouse?
They didn't. I think the blast scared them more than it did the residents, and they ran off and were never apprehended.
Now, the courthouse is having a difficult series of events here. It burned the year before, now the windows are out, and the very next year was a very sad moment in San Jose history involving the courthouse. Tell us what happened.
It did. A prominent citizen was kidnapped, murdered, and the kidnappers were apprehended and placed in jail. The residents of San Jose decided they wouldn't have any of that ever again. So they got a battering ram, broke down the front of the jail, took the two kidnappers out, dragged them out, and lynched them right here in the park. It was a very sad period, but after that time, San Jose had the lowest crime rate in the country.
Well, it's just about time for us to say goodnight, but we have time for one more history fun fact. Now, the park is on the National Register of Historic Places.
It is.
And it's ringed with historic buildings. Can you tell me the oldest one?
That would be the Trinity Episcopal Church that was built in 1863. It was designed by a retired shipbuilder, and it was designed in the Carpenter Gothic style.
The Carpenter Gothic style. Now, why would you choose a shipbuilder to build your church?
Well, other than he was probably a parishioner of the church, but shipbuilders were the finest carpenters of that era.
Well, thank you for sharing all your history fun facts with us. We've really appreciated this peek into San Jose's past. For all of us at This Is Us, I'm Becca King-Reed saying so long.
This is us.
This is us.
This is us.